will use you as He wishes when He wants something done. While you can create, I'm creating, especially small. Susie, make the stations of the cross for those poor people. And I'm driving. And I grabbed the steering wheel tight, and I said, okay. To listen to God's prompting in your heart, because not only was I able to then create, hello, I am Suzanne M. I'm a sculptor of religious artwork, and the story begins long ago. Lived in Southfield, Michigan with my parents, my brother, and I was already creating artwork in grade school. There was a school, still is there, Mercy High School in Farmington, close by, and it was known for its expert art department. Sister Mary Ignatius ran the ship. And I really wanted to get into that school, and my father, having been born in 1914 from a different era, and I was the oldest, the girl child, he said, I can't imagine spending $200 a year on tuition. $200 a year, we're going back a little bit. That was 1967, on a girl. Why can't she just go to Southfield High School? And my mother said, she's going to Mercy High School, to a Catholic school. And my mother won. So I went to Mercy High School, and I was formed under the tutelage of Sister Ignatius, who formed me. And then I won a scholarship to Pratt School of Art and Design in New York City, and went there and spent a year there. And then I returned, finished at Mercy College, and took my teaching certification, and then I wanted to continue on, so I took my Master's of Fine Art in bronze casting. I love sculpture very much, painting, but sculpture, at Eastern Michigan. As I was finishing my master's degree in Ypsilanti, on Christmas morning of 1976, I received a phone call, and it was from Sister Mary Ignatius, and she said, Suzanne, we're growing here in the art department, and we have room to hire another teacher. So I want to hire you on as an art teacher at Mercy High School. So that was 6 years later. So I graduated from graduate school and had a job. And a lot of people were just working at a department store, but So see how God's working. So I start teaching there, and that's 77. And one time we had and so there were two sisters there, Sister Kevin, Sister Ignatius, and myself, and we were having a department meeting, and Sister, her name was then Ellen, she said, I'm going to be in an art show in Lansing. And I said, And Sister Ignatius, now I was creating artwork, but it was not religious, it was secular. Relief work where the figure would slice through the clay, and it was beautiful movement in the figure, but not quite religious yet. So Sister Ignatius turns to me and says, Suzanne, why don't you create religious artwork? And I didn't say anything. So within a month, I took some of the secular work that I had into an art show at Mount Clemens Community over there in an art exhibit, and they were accepted. So I went to the champagne opening on a Sunday afternoon, took somebody with me. Anyway, and so we're standing, and this person with me is asking, now, how did you get that patina coloring, the coloring? So I'm explaining, and I was aware behind me of a very tall presence of a person. The woman says, "I really like your style. Would you ever be interested in creating church sculpture? Sculpture for churches." And I thought, I didn't answer because, see, Sister Ignatius had just said something a few weeks before. And this person who was with me said, of course she's interested. So anyway, I got in touch with Margaret Kavanaugh. That was Cardinal Dearden back then. And and she would line me up, and she would renovate some churches, and she'd have me do the sculpture. And then I met Monsignor Toko when he was on the east side, St. Margaret of Scotland Church, and then now he has St. Hugo of the Hills. I created work for him there, Stations of the Cross and a Holy Family. And so what my point is how God intervened in a big way. I mean, talk about timing. How do you time that? Somebody coming behind you and saying, I want you to work with me. So then I'm still teaching at Mercy High School. I was there for about 12 years teaching. And the students knew I created artwork. And one time, this one student comes to me and she handed me a brochure. She said, my mother works at a church, and this conference, this Catholic Church conference is coming up at the Hyatt Regency in Dearborn. And we thought maybe it'd be interested. So I called the number, and I already was creating some religious art, small. So I called the number, was able to secure a booth, went there, sold the work, and the other booksellers, the Christian Catholic booksellers, were telling me, hey, you could go to this conference in this part of the country and the other conference and this and that. They were very helpful. And so I started to go. I create the smaller artwork, go to the conferences, Washington, D.C., out that way, set up the booth, and during the break time of conferences, the priest would come through, people would come through, see the work, and the priest would say, okay, I need a life-size Jesus and Mary, and that's how it started. And then I found out about another conference in Southern California, in Anaheim, and I would pack up a crate of artwork, ship it, go there, and so a lot of director of religious education ladies would come through, plus the priests, and I was creating artwork for churches in Las Vegas, Southern California. So then I was able to leave teaching and buy a small home and have a studio and create the artwork on my own. And so the word spread, but that's how God works. But there's one little point I want to make. When Sister Ignatius asked me about creating the artwork for the religious theme, I kind of bristled, and I thought, religious artwork, I'm not sure about that. But then I'll tell you, Margaret Kavanaugh came at that show, so then I started to create, and I'm so glad, and this is what I want to pass along, to listen to God's prompting in your heart, because not only was I able to then create and meet so many people and inspire people, because when you create a religious piece of artwork, it's for inspiration for prayer. It's to lift the soul to God, And so that's why I say to people, listen, God speaks to everybody. We just have to listen. A lot of people just block them out. And no, don't, because God helped me spiritually, financially, and just incredible. So I then in the Detroit area created numerous life-size sculptures, and you'll be seeing the angel here at St. Joseph Church in Lake Orion. And but also I created the smaller gift items. Well, there was a lady here in the year 2000, and I started to come to daily mass here at St. Joseph, and she said, if you work even smaller, And keep the prices, because it's all original artwork, fine art. If you keep the prices in under $100, you'll probably sell more and more people will be able to give gifts. So I started to do that. And, while you can create, I'm creating, especially small. So that way there's original fine art available for gift items, baptisms, weddings, so on and so on. Yes. So I worked the small and large. And lately, because people have asked me, what commission do you have now? Well, I really don't have any commissions now, but what I'm doing is creating smaller work, which you see on the website. Like last Lent, I said, I get inspirations from the Holy Spirit where I can see a picture of something and then I go to create it. Jesus falling under the cross. But I work small because there's no reason to work large. And so I have Jesus in different poses, different sculptures, falling under his cross. Then got an inspiration, a guardian angel comforting a woman. Okay, because I have Jesus comforting, but seemed to have been a lot of men. I said, I better have him comforting women too, going through trauma. And then Jesus, guardian angel. So I work very small now, and I have to tell you, it's amazing how you touch hearts. So a year and a half ago, my one cable dish TV, the box went out. So I called them, they came, they said, you have to cut down all your trees, and I'm in the woods. I said, goodbye, that's it. So I called the other cable company, they came. All right, they had different satellite, fine. But the point is, the man then came in, and he had to show me how to use all the technology. So fine, I'm fooling with that, and he sits down where I was working, which was by a Jesus with his arm around somebody, small. And I'm not paying attention to him. I just didn't want him to touch it because it was wet clay. And I'm trying to figure out the remote. And he asked me, could I take a picture of this? And I said, well, sure. And I thought, look, now, what were the chances? This man coming in, I usually, when I finish a piece, take it right from that work table and put it on a drying rack. It was still there and touch heart. I don't think he hated it if he wanted to take a picture of it. So, and it's amazing. God will use you as he wishes when he wants something done. The last time, my mother passed away 2.5 years ago. She was almost 97. She was always in my corner. Remember, she won the battle about the high school, and she always was for me and supportive. And my father, he would work with me too, but he was always worried about me, are you going to be able to eat? And see, God provided. So anyhow, my mother, then she started failing. She lived with me the last 2 years of her life, and she passed away on the Feast of St. Therese, October 1st, 2020. Okay. So then a year later, I had the Mass for her here, October 1st, 2021. Okay, and then we went to a little restaurant, a group of us were eating, and the one lady says to me, St. John Fisher, now they've changed. They have never had Stations of the Cross for 55 years. And now they have a different pastor and that. And they want the Stations of the Cross. And so I'm driving down the road, I'm thinking about all this. What am I going to do? They wanted 2-foot Stations of the Cross. And I was viewing it as a lot of work, even though I love doing my work. And all of a sudden, because my mother, she was very short, but she could get into my Yukon and just grab that assist handle and swing herself in and sit in the passenger seat. So I'm driving, and I don't see anybody, but I hear loud and clear, Susie, make the stations of the cross for those poor people. And I'm driving, and I grabbed the steering wheel tight, and I said, okay. And I called up the friends I had just been sitting with 10 minutes before, and I said, I'm going to make the stations of the cross, no problem. And they remembered that phone call, because I forgot the phone call. They remembered a year later, they were telling me. So that was a Friday. That Monday, I got into our pastor, Father Jim, and I said, don't worry, I'll donate them. We'll make the Stations of the Cross. Now, there were big slots in the walls, and Father Jim said, oh, I'm going to make the wood backings because we have to cover up those holes, those slots. I said, that's right. And then we got our deacon here, one of the deacons, Deacon John Manera, to laser cut the wording. And I said to Father Jim, we have 5 months before the first Friday of Lent. I said, we really should have it done for Lent so we can make the Stations of the Cross, because that's powerful prayer for the souls in purgatory. And so off we went. And I would create, and at morning mass, the people would say, oh, okay, which one are you on now? And I would show them a picture of what I just finished. So, and then fast forward, we finished, and for that first Friday in Lent this is 23, was that 22? I guess 2022, yes, right. And a big crowd of people came to make the Way of the Cross. It was wonderful. My work is discernible. They can, if you have an image like the fourth station where Jesus meets his mother. And I always try to create it where the Blessed Mother has her hand on Jesus's face, and Jesus has his hand on her shoulder. And there's that interaction between the two, which it's interesting. Psychologically, then that brings the viewer into that setting versus them staring out at you. When you have the two figures working together, then that brings and evokes an emotion from the heart. At St. Michael the Archangel in Aurora, Colorado, I created stations for them. Once again, a woman picked up my brochure at a Catholic conference, showed the priest, they flew me out, and I created. The priest wanted me to come to the dedication. So I went there, I think that was right after John Paul was there. I think this was 1994-ish. So I went and he wanted me to explain things. So I was talking about that, the fourth station there. And when I was finished, the man came to me from who were at Mass afterwards, and he said, you brought me to tears. That's so beautiful. That's what you want. That's the prayer, where people would have their hearts touched and go to God and listen to him and for their will, for his will in their life.
you searching for fulfillment? Discover true happiness. Stay tuned to Shalom World.